All right, here we go. We're back live. Had some audio issues earlier. Shout out to the chat for letting me know here. You guys got to be patient with me. This is my second live stream, so I'm still working out the kinks, but I think we are good to go. Yeah. All right, all right, all right. All right, here we go. Back in action. Boost up English. You guys, thanks for the patience. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. As you know, I'm starting to do some live streams. I want to do some live lessons with you guys. I want to get some live interactions with you. Get some questions from you and find out what you guys want to learn about here with me and what you want to focus on with your American accent. I want to know what your goals are, where you guys are from, why are you studying American accent? Do you want to sound like a native speaker? Do you just want to be understood more easily? Let me know in the chat. If you guys put a one in the chat, let me know if you can hear me. I'm going to switch over to our screen. Let's bring, I think that's the old chat. Let's bring this new chat over with us. Give me just a second. All right. All right. So, just like the title of the video says, today we're going to be talking about how to hear English like a native speaker. So, I talked about this in the last live is that one of the biggest barriers that I see holding students back from improving their pronunciation is their listening. So, like most of the time when non-native speakers are listening, we're listening for the easiest thing that our ears can attach to. Okay, like whatever sound is most comfortable or most familiar with us, and you're not necessarily listening to the sounds that the native speaker is projecting the most or is putting the most emphasis on. So that's one of the first steps in the keys to learning how to hear the language like a native speaker, but to also deliver the language in the way that that native speaker is expecting to hear. So if you're not delivering the language the way the speaker's expecting, you're forcing them to do more work. You're forcing them to use more processing power, right, to decode what you're saying. And they're probably eventually going to end up focusing on how you're saying things instead of what you're saying. So, the value of what you're saying starts to get diluted. And you don't get your message across as effectively as possible. So, a lot of you, whether you're, you know, doing sales or presentations or just in your day-to-day lives in the US, to make things, as easy as possible, you want to learn how and what American listeners' ears are attracted to, what our ears are focused on, right? Because just like any communication expert will tell you, there's two ways to send a message. You can send it in a way that the sender prefers, or you can send it in a way that the receiver prefers. So today I'm going to show you exactly what characteristics American listeners' ears listen to when they're listening to the language so that you can start to train it. So let's jump into it. All right, so stress versus unstressed. What you need to know about this is that English, in English, there's every vowel has two versions. There's a stressed version and an unstressed version. And the way that we understand which version you're using is like a recipe. So it's really important for us to hear the recipe in the way that we're familiar. And it sends right? We want to know what the most important part of the sound is, or most important part of the word is. So if you give all of the word the same mixture of ingredients in your recipe, it's going to be a lot harder for people to follow you. And this is when a lot of you guys are running into the situations where, right, even if you're stressing the right syllable, you're saying like, well, people still don't understand me, or people are always asking you, where are you from? um, right, because you're sending, you're technically sending the sounds, but it's not the flavor of the recipe that people are used to. So I'm going to put a link to this in the description for this website here. You guys can come back and check it out later. But the way that I like to describe the rhythm of English is just like whatever your favorite dish would be from your home country. So, right, when you eat that dish and you're eating that dish in your home country, you know exactly what it tastes like, what it, the texture, what it smells like. But if you go to New York and you order the same dish, right, it will probably taste similar, but you're gonna notice there's a little difference, right? There's something a little bit different with the ingredients, the texture, right? The flavors. It's probably still good, but it's not the same. And you're used to tasting that recipe from back home, and so, right, it's obvious that it's not the same thing. So that's what happens with us when we're listening to non-native speakers speak the language and they're using the rhythm in a way that's not the way that we expect. So if you want to learn how to listen like a native speaker and deliver your message in a way that's easy for us, you need to master listening to these four ingredients. So the four ingredients are volume, length, openness or space, and also pitch. So I think when we're talking about stressed and unstressed, right? Volume is probably the most obvious one. Everybody knows that like a stressed syllable has more volume than an unstressed syllable. Length, I think, is fairly easy for most students to grasp, even though it might not be natural. Um, but it's also one of the things that's a little bit easier to hear. What what we're essentially doing is we're making our unstressed syllables so short, right? That it's so obvious when we make the stressed syllables a little bit longer. Openness and pitch, or sorry, openness and pitch. These are the two that I probably spend the most time working on with students. Um, Most students find it pretty, I guess I wouldn't say uncomfortable, but maybe extreme or exaggerated, the way that mouth movement is created for American English versus their native language. And then also the pitch is something that a lot of students have to learn how to hear and tune their ear for. So we're going to go through and break this down piece by piece with some examples. So like I mentioned, every vowel has two versions. And the whole idea of the way that we listen to the language is that we want it to be so obvious when a syllable is stressed and unstressed. We want it to be so obvious that there's no doubt about it, and right, we can easily identify which parts of the message are the most important. So let's take a look at some examples here where we have vowels in both versions, the stressed and unstressed version. All right, so here's some examples here that I go over with students in my class. And we can see that these are all two syllable words that have more than one form. So the general rule is that when the two syllable word has two syllables, usually the noun has the first syllable stress and the verb has the second syllable stress. Obviously, there's exceptions because it's English, but we're not going to worry about the exceptions for now. We're just going to focus on this rule. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to read this example here, both versions, a few times. And I want you guys to just listen and focus on trying to hear the contrast of these four ingredients. Okay. So Here we go. You're listening to volume, length, pitch, and space as I read these examples. Here we go. Record, 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 record. Let me make myself a little bigger. Record, record. Right? Listen to this. Record, 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 record. Right? Listen to the pitch. Record, 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 record. Look at the space. Record, 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 record. Okay, so sometimes it takes a little while for your ear to adjust, but what you can see is that whether it's stressed or unstressed, it's obvious. Okay, let's look at this first example. Listen to the way that I'm pronouncing this. Re, you hear that pitch go up? Re, curd, curd, curd. Right? It's so short. It's not fast. I'm not saying record, record, right? It's just short. Record, curd, curd, curd. Okay, and listen to this. Record, record. So what you might notice is that I'm actually not pronouncing this vowel sound at all here. I'm just saying Kurt, 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 right? Record. This is something called syllabic consonants. I'll do a video on this. Oh, I have lots of videos on this actually, but I'll do a live on this in the future. But if it's something that's new to you, you don't need to know the rule right now to start listening to it. All right, you can just understand that sometimes in unstressed syllables we don't pronounce the vowel. So if you're listening and you can hear that, that's better than knowing the rule, right? You don't want to be thinking about rules the whole time you're trying to understand sounds, right? Listen again. Record, curd, curd. Listen to that unstressed syllable. Short, flat pitch. And what you notice is only a little bit of space. Curd, curd, curd. Compared to the stressed, re, re. Look at the mouth movement I'm creating. Re. So this is something that students need to learn as well. I'm not creating mouth movement from the front of the mouth. I'm not measuring the space between my teeth. That's one of the mistakes I see a lot. If I create this mouth movement from the front, watch this. Re, re, re. All of this is still closed, right? It's not giving the effect of the amplification that our ears are looking for, right? Re. So what we do, the way we create mouth movement is from here, right? I call it the jaw hinge or the back of the jaw. And if you notice, just moving this just a little bit, re. Look at how much openness that created, re. So it also amplifies that vowel sound and makes it so obvious that it's stressed because it's big, right? Watch this. Record, record. When you're paying attention to mouth movement, you always want to check the back of the jaw. The front of the mouth, it's helpful, but you can't always see the amount of movement that's happening, right? Like even in this example is itself here, because my lips are rounding. If I say record, record, or you can't really see how much space there is. But if you're looking here, record, record, oh, right? That's where my voice is coming out. That's where the amplifying effect happens. So you always want to do it that way. So when we're creating this rhythmic contrast, right? It's not only that just this is the way that Americans do it. It's it's actually almost like a superpower or a tool for you to keep people's attention locked in, right? If I start to have a very similar pitch for stressed and unstressed syllables, a similar openness, it gets kind of boring, right? There's nothing that's grabbing my attention. But if I put this really hard contrast up and down, right? That difference there, we're going up, down, big, small, it makes those important sounds just slam into the listener's ear. And there's like almost no way that you can not pay attention to it. Right? I mean, if you any just like any change, I mean, like if you're in a car and you're going slow and then you speed up and slow down, or right, if you're in a room and it's quiet and then it's loud and then it's quiet, right? It's something that your ears can't help but pay attention to. So this is one way that you can really grab on to your listeners' attention by creating this contrast, right? So yes, it's something that you need to do, but if you think about it, in that way, it could be more helpful for understanding the importance of it. All right. What else? So here we talked about this vowel disappearing. Also, check out how I'm pronouncing this one. I'm not pronouncing this vowel the way it's written. I'm not saying record, record, record. Okay, listen to the way I'm pronouncing it. I'm saying record, record. Okay, so that sound here, for those of you that have watched videos on American pronunciation, you probably know that that sound is the schwa. And it's just a neutral sound that we use in the unstressed syllable to make it so obvious that it's unstressed. Right? If I don't use the schwa and if I actually pronounce this vowel, even though if I make it small, if I say record, record, just starting out by saying it's not obvious what's coming next, right? Is something going to be bigger? Is something going to be smaller? But if I start out and I just say right, with this neutral schwa with the same recipe of characteristics, low volume, short length, flat pitch, just a little bit of space, right? And the listener can hear this resonance inside of my body, this vibration, then it's obvious that it's the unstressed syllable. And the listener knows that whatever's coming after that is probably going to be bigger and more important part of the message. Welcome to the live. If you're learning something, put a 1 in the chat. All right, so this is going to happen without any exceptions. Stress syllables are going to have more volume, length, space, and pitch. Unstressed syllables will have less. Okay, thanks for the 1. All right, so another thing to pay attention to here is, and this is what I talk about when I say listening like a pro. Listening like a pro means that you're not listening to what might be easier for your ears. You're listening to what the speaker is putting out with the most importance. So, what I mean by that here is that some students, when they start out and they're trying to create this contrast, they'll do it in a way that's still not clear for the listener. And what I mean by that is that they'll focus on the consonant sounds. So, like an exaggerated imitation of what I've heard in the past is some students might say something like this, where they emphasize the R and the K, say record, 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 record. Right? You can still hear the first syllable going up and the second syllable's down. Record, record. But that's not creating any type of clarity. Our ears focus on vowels. Our ears focus on resonance, connection. Right? So if you listen to me, you're gonna hear me emphasizing the the vowel here, and the vibration down here in the like this, record, right? So consonant sounds would be record, record. Vowel sounds would be record, record. And if you notice, because I'm emphasizing this vowel, I'm also emphasizing the journey and the path of the pitch going up and down, right? Listen to this. Record, 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 right? In this version, it's like my voice just appears magically, appears somewhere higher. In this version, you can trace and follow my voice going up and down. Record, record. And this is what an American listener wants to hear the whole time we're speaking. You listen to me right now, you can trace this up and down of the pitch and the connection to my body. All right. If you guys want me to analyze any words, feel free to drop them in the chat. All right. So this is how it works, but we also need to understand that not every vowel sound has exactly the same shape or exactly the same amount of space. But again, if we compare, take any vowel and look at it in the stressed version versus the unstressed version, we're going to see a noticeable change in the amount of space. So here's a great example, right? We're using this e vowel in two different forms. So check out the difference here, stressed and unstressed. Present, present. Look at this. Present, present. Okay, and so when we add the right amount of ingredients from our recipe, that makes the perfect combination, the perfect flavor for our American ears to know which parts are important, which parts are delivering the key signals of the message. All right, so we're going to practice this here together. I'm going to read these. You guys can shadow these with me. And again, you want to focus on the recipe, right? Don't stare at the words. You can look at the words. I'll make myself a little smaller. I don't want you guys to stare at the words, but what you should be focusing on here is these four characteristics. So even though you see these letters aren't, they're not telling you about this. And this is what our American ears are listening for. All right. So here we go. Repeat after me, focusing on those characteristics, and make sure you're paying attention to the mouth movement as well so that it matches the rhythm. And again, I'm making mouth movement from here, not from here. So here we go. Repeat after me. Record, record. Record, record. Listen to the vibration, the connection. Present, present. Present, present. Produce, produce. Produce, produce. Right? You see my mouth movement. This is where my voice is coming out. This is where everything's getting amplified. Insult, insult. Insult, insult. Object, object. Object, object. Permit, permit. Yes, see that. Permit, permit. All right, so you see there was no exceptions here. Every time it was stressed, right? Every time the pitch went up, the space got more open and there was more length. Every time it was unstressed, it was small, it was flat, just a little bit of volume. And again, really, really, really short. Really, really, really short. So there's no exceptions to this. This is something that we do without exception all the time, 100% of the time. And again, remember, this big amount of contrast is what keeps your listeners' attention because it's fluctuating so much. That drastic change makes all the important parts stand out. All right. So if you guys want me to check your pronunciation, you guys can set up a quick call with me, 15 minutes. I'll listen to you talk, analyze your speech, and I'll let you know what is the first step you should start working on to start moving towards your goal. Also, you can follow me on social media here, but let's look at some more examples. Okay, we already looked at these. Let's check this one out. Watch this. Volume, length, pitch, and space. Rebel, rebel. Rebel, rebel. Okay, so if we break down a sentence, it works the same way. We have three content words. you don't know what a content word is the word that gives us details, the most information. It's verbs, nouns, adjectives, adverbs. The others are function words. We got two function words. So here the content words are going to have stressed syllables. So we got one, two, three stressed syllables. So when I read this sentence, every time I hit one of those stressed syllables, you're going to hear the pitch go up, and you're going to hear, or you're going to see my mouth create space, but you also hear the space as well. All right, watch this. The rebel led the uprising. The rebel led the uprising. So my ears are following this big, small, right? Open, less open, flat pitch, or rising pitch. Now let's turn it to the verb. Watch this. They rebel against unfair rules. They rebel against unfair rules. All right, welcome, guys. Welcome to the live. We're covering rhythmic contrast. Covering rhythmic contrast. If you want me to analyze a word, just throw it in the chat there. All right, look at this. This one's tough. It's not tough. It's just less obvious. All right, so these vowels here, this I and this E, these are not as open as like vowels, for example, like ah, like con or tract. But if we compare stressed versus unstressed or stressed versus unstressed, you'll still see a noticeable difference in the space, and you'll hear a difference in the length and in the pitch. Right? You really want to connect, get your brain and your ears to connect the idea that when pitch goes up, there's also space. Right? Watch this. Increase, 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 increase. So let's check out the sentences here. This time we got two content words. So only have two stressed syllables. All this stuff here is not important. We're not going to highlight it. We're not going to put a bunch of attention on it. These are function words. These are content words. These are function words. So listen to how short. Like I said, this still follows the same recipe. Volume, length, pitch, and space. Listen to how short and small I make this. It's not fast. It's short. There was an there was an right. I'm not saying there was an there was an there was an, and then I'm gonna get here and I'm gonna make this big and grab the listener's attention. Watch this. There was an increase. There was an increase. Increase in temperature. There was an increase in temperature. There was an increase in temperature, right? The pitch goes up, more space. And again, I'm using musicality. I'm using a singing quality for my voice, right? I'm not speaking forward here. I'm not saying there was an increase in, I'm saying there was an increase in temperature. Everything's coming from my body, resonating here for the listener. All right, this time we've got three content words. And one thing you guys want to remember is that there's a hierarchy. Three of the words are important, but we have to still create hierarchy. They're not all going to be the same. So this is giving us information, but it's not as much information as this or as this. These are way more specific details. So I'm going to put even more attention on these words. Right? This is function word, to function, are, this is all function. We're not going to hardly give any attention to those. So check this out. We need to increase our efforts. Again, listen to the difference in length. We need to, we, to, need, we need to increase, right? Pitch goes up, more space. We need to increase our efforts like that, all with the musical quality. Welcome to the live, everyone. If you guys want me to analyze any word, just drop it in the chat. Or if you want me to analyze a video of your pronunciation on a live, scan that QR code or check. Um, yeah, I guess I didn't put it in the description this time. I have to put. You can come back and after it's done, I'll drop it in the description. All right, let's look at this one here. Now these are a little bit bigger. These are more obvious. But again, mouth movement is coming from here. And if you look, my lips are relaxed, right? One thing I see a lot of times with students when they're doing mouth movement, you can see them go with the lips, right? Because they're not used to moving their mouth from back here. Look at my lips. They're all relaxed. It's just like, when you go to the dentist or something or bite an apple. Check this out. When the pitch goes up, I create more space. My unstressed syllable is going to be tiny, 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 right? And here we go. It's all musical. Watch this. I'm highlighting the vowels, not the consonants. Listen to the vowels, the resonance. Watch this. Contract, contract. Contract, contract. Right? Every vowel has two versions. Notice here, again, this is another situation. I'm not even pronouncing this vowel. Again, they're called syllabic consonants. I'll do a live about it later. You can go to my YouTube. I mean, we can go right now. Syllabic consonants. There's a bunch of videos on these here. Just do this. Syllabic. Look at this. Syllabic consonants, syllabic consonants, syllabic N, syllabic L. Um, so yeah, but the point is that I'm not pronouncing this vowel. So you don't need to know the rules to start listening. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see from people is that they're like, tell me the rules. What are the rules? I want to know the rules. Okay, sure, the rules are good, but if you start out for pronunciation training, if you start out by learning the rules, you're just going to obsess about the rules. And every time you see a new word or try to pronounce, you're going to start filtering through all these rules instead of just relying on your listening. Um, so it's much more effective to just understand that something happens, be ready to hear it, and then when you hear it, you can start to recreate it a little bit. All right. So again, watch this. Contract, contract. Let's check out the sentence. 3 content words. He signed the contract today. He signed the contract today. Everything is following our rules, our recipe, volume, length, pitch, and space. Watch this. Muscles contract during exercise. Muscles contract during exercise. So that's how it works, right? In any of these sentences or words that we see here, we're going to find the same patterns. There's no exceptions to this. And this is the format. This is the OS, the operating system, the input that you have to use for this interface or for this this OS. And if you don't do it this way, you're putting all the responsibility on the listener, and you're diluting the value of your message. You're diluting, right, just the effectiveness of your communication, and you're going to make people start focusing on how you're saying things instead of what you're saying. And that's not what we want when we communicate. Sure, accents are great, right? I'm not saying you can't have an accent, but the format that you're sending your message should be familiar and comfortable to the listener. And the reality is, if you do this, you don't even need to perfect every vowel sound in the language. I mean, that's another thing I see is that students start out and they want to perfect every vowel sound. Okay, it's good to have your vowel sounds, you know, to pronounce them well, but just by giving us this format in our ears, it's easier for us to understand when without perfect vowel sounds than if you did the opposite. Excuse me. If your vowel sounds are perfect, but you're not using this format. And that's something that the students don't under I mean a lot of students don't understand is the format is more important than the perfection of, if your tongue moves this way or that way, right? Or your lips do, those things are important, but it's not going to be the game changer. All right. So what else can I say about rhythmic contrast? I mean that is really it. And the way you guys should be practicing here is that you should be recording yourself. I know it's a little bit uncomfortable in the beginning to record yourself. I know when I started coming on camera, recording videos for students. Actually, I remember like being in like third grade and doing a video project. And I remember the kids laughing at I don't know if it was the kids. Actually, I think it was my sisters, but I was surprised at how I sounded. That's the point. But if you're not recording yourself when you're practicing, your practice is not as effective as it could be, and you're making your path to your goal take longer, right? So you should be getting whatever example that you want to shadow or imitate. Get a clear video where you can see the person's mouth movement, right? The audio is clear, and then have yourself on camera and see, right? Does my mouth movement look the same or similar, or does it look very different? If it looks very different, right? If your mouth movement doesn't look like American English, we can probably assume it doesn't sound like American English, right? So if you're imitating someone, right? Let's do we can say here, right? And you see them and they're saying contest, and you're saying contest, contest, con, or con, right? I mean, obviously that fixes right there. You don't even need a pronunciation coach. A lot of things you can do on your own without a pronunciation coach, right? You know about these four characteristics, these ingredients, right? You might not be able to hear them perfectly right now, but the point is that you know what to focus on, right? And now you know what path to head in. And the more you listen to, the difference in length, the more your ears get tuned to, what more openness or less openness, flat pitch, the more you can start guiding yourself. And if you record yourself, you're going to have an effective practice. So that's really it. Unless there's any questions from anybody in the chat or any examples that you guys want me to break down in terms of rhythm, give you guys a moment or two if there's anything. If not, that's fine as well. Again, I'm going to put the link for this web page in the description. And if you want more practice, my number one recommendation here is to go to Rachel's English. Okay, I have some mini courses on my website. I've made courses, but Rachel has the most complete course. Okay, she has the most material. She has thousands, look at 40,000 audio files, all of the materials, the audios for listening and repeating. And it's to me the best self-paced course. Obviously, if you want coaching, right, one-on-one coaching, right, that's something different. But if you just want, a library of material, this is the place I recommend. So if you guys are interested in that, you can use my coupon code. You get 10% off of your subscription at Rachel's English. So that's it, guys. I really appreciate everyone for joining today. This is my second live, so we're going to keep on doing these. If you guys have any requests of like the topics you want me to cover, you can put them in the chat or you can comment on the video if you're watching the replay. Again, I will be doing live analysis of pronunciation videos. So if you want that to be you, you can scan that QR code there, or you can email me. You can find my email in my LinkedIn bio, or sorry, LinkedIn, but also the YouTube bio. Um, and if you want to say thank you, you can send me a tip there via PayPal. I got buy me a coffee if this was something that helped you move towards your goal. So that's it for now, guys. I'm going to leave it here. Thank you for joining me. So now that you know how to do this correctly, you just boosted up your English, and I'll see you in the next live.